begin today, COP28 that is. Well, the Nigerian delegation by President Bola Tinubu is expected to be at that climate change conference, COP28, holding in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates. The 13-day summit, which begins today, will actively explore establishing new and deeper bilateral partnerships to implement Nigeria's energy transition, as well as Article 6 projects, internationally transferred mitigation outcomes. Of course, there are some other crucial topics, including technology transfer, capacity building, and the issue of methane mitigation. President Tinubu will also maximize this opportunity to advocate for increased climate, financial, and technical support for developing nations, while reminding developed countries of their public pledge to provide $100 billion annual support to localized initiatives, this to address climate change-related challenges. And we have joining us for this conversation from our Abuja studio, we have the MD CEO of Mark Press West Africa, Idowu Salau. We also have via Zoom climate activist Philip Jakbo. Gentlemen, we thank you very much for joining us at this time. All right, let's begin with Philip Jakbo. It's good to see you again. Regarding the Dubai conference now beginning today, what are your expectations? You've been an active voice in on this issue of climate change, of making necessary changes to better the environment. But how optimistic are you about this COP28?
Thank you very much for that question. It's a very, very tricky question. Tricky in the sense that the COP species, the UNFCCC COP species, is now a marketplace. And of course, you and I know what happens in a marketplace. It's buying and selling. Previous COPs have not been very, very encouraging. And I don't think we are going to make too much progress even with COP28. First of all, we have to start with where the COP is holding. The issue about climate change is that fossil fuel extraction is the major cause of climate change. The COP is holding in Dubai, which is the epicenter of oil extraction. But beyond that, there are three critical issues that, two or three critical issues that are on the table, which we expect some, back and forth to happen over. First of all is the issue of what we call loss and damage finance, which was set up in COP27 in Egypt. We look forward to the operationalization of these loss and damage finance. Loss and damage finance is supposed to address the irreversible impacts of climate change, like forest fires, issues of extreme drought, which vulnerable countries in the global south, like ourselves, are experiencing. We are not the cause of the climate crisis, but we are the ones experiencing these issues. Secondly, is the issue, like your report mentioned, of the $100 billion pledge by rich industrialized nations, which has not been met, since the Paris Agreement was reached more than a decade ago. And then thirdly is the issue of the phase out, which activists have been asking for. Phase out of coal and other dirty energies. In COP27, what we heard is phase down. So you can see all these languages are, strategies of the global north to continue this business of extracting without responsibility, and then we carry the biggest burden. So those are some of the crucial issues that we should be looking out for in the Dubai climate conference.
Okay, so let me move to our guest in Abuja studio, Idowu Salau. Looking at COP28, Idowu, it has opened with calls to accelerate climate action, and climate finance is at the heart of this transformation. Now, what are your thoughts on the commitment of world leaders to limit global temperatures in the face of the climate crisis?
Thank you. I will suggest that Nigerian delegation will not go cup in hand as if they are begging. But we need to tidy up our own homes too, in the area of putting the right legislation and the instrument of intervention for us to be able to attract this fund for our development. And if you look at what the fund is to be used for, from the source, the statistic that was given, the global statistics, is that climate change finance investment is between, that's total investment globally, between $500 billion to $4 trillion is what we should be looking at to tackle climate change impact globally. Nigeria aspects from the African Development Bank study said that we require about between $247 billion at an annual average annual of $21.5 billion climate finance to tackle impact of climate change. And the area they are looking at is mitigation and adaptation, where mitigation is to maybe take 71% of this fund. So I expect our delegation, thank God Mr. President just made his budget, and we are happy that climate change, renewable energy happens to be in the front burner. So I will be glad if what they are trying to request from the multilateral and the state actors, both national and international, to be able to come to Nigeria with the benefit of this Conference of Party program going on in Dubai. Now, what do I mean by we should get our own house in order? The area of renewable energy, sustainable transportation, and waste management is key for this investment opportunity. I want to see the legislator working alongside with the executive to come up with instruments of intervention for us to be able to attract this climate fund from the international donor. And that's when they will see that, yeah, Nigeria is ready, and we are ready to key in to be able to have the sources of the fund. It's not going to be business as usual. It is what you ask for, they will give you. So I want to see Ministry of Environment, I want to see Energy, Ministry of Power, I want to see humanitarian and poverty alleviation working in synergy. I want to see the private sector working with the public sector to be able to utilize this fund if our president and other delegations are able to attract this from multilateral and other donor nations that are coming for COP27. So that's my own opinion, and that's the way I want the state actors to act in Dubai.
Right, and Mr. Jakpo, in terms of the Nigerian contingent, especially the government's sense of purpose, sense of urgency, what do you see on the ground now? Because, you know, there is generally expectations, high level of expectation and optimism, you know, to this conference, especially being the first for the Tinubu administration. But from what you've seen so far in terms of their efforts in addressing climate change challenges in Nigeria, how much of a sense of purpose would you regard the Nigerian contingent as they, you know, join the deliberations over there in Dubai?
Well, I think the point we need to make here is we want to assume, and we may not be wrong, that the most pressing demands, engagements that the president is going to be involved in has to do with our own just energy transition plan. And already we've seen that this administration is talking about compressed natural gas. So I assume that that is what the president is going to be pushing investors in that sector so that Nigeria can continue to, improve in terms of delivery, transiting from fossil fuels, which is dirty, very dirty energy, to something that is cleaner. We are not saying compressed natural gas or natural gas is the cleanest, because the compressed natural gas, its processes also involves methane, which is one of the highest polluters also. Scientists have observed that. So in oil extraction, when we also want to extract gas, methane is also emitted into the atmosphere. And like your report also captured, methane is now part of the discussion. It started initially with just carbon emission, but now, which is very dirty, the discussion has also moved to issues of methane and I think nitrous oxide. So I believe the president is a businessman. So like I said earlier on, the COP unfortunately has become a marketplace where delegations go to do business, and most of those business seems to be far away from addressing the root causes of climate change, which is the issue of cutting down on emission. That we will continue to even use compressed natural gas means we will still continue to extract. It also means that pollutions are still going to be happening. But then, like I said earlier, compressed natural gas is cleaner. So the president's delegation, of course, will naturally have experts in that area who are going to be looking at the kind of investments that they can draw to Nigeria to help the president's vision of using compressed natural gas as the driver of our own transition away from very, very dirty energy. You could also see that even some days ago, about 2 days ago or 3, there was a report that the United Arab Emirates, which is the host, is planning to use the COP to also, broker some new oil and gas deals. So it's now a business place. And unfortunately, it's not going to take us anywhere. Yes, we're going to have investors in compressed natural gas, and things around that. But then the real issue, which is for us to cut down on emission, we have still kicked it down the line, just like most other nations that have gone there for business.
Philip Jakpo, so a few months ago, I think September, there was the Africa Climate Change Summit, and of course it was agreed that Africa also needs to come up with a common position, talking about this bid for just transition, just energy transition. I wonder where you stand in this. What's the practicability of this common African front as against Nigeria coming up with its own? These are what matters most to us at this international summit.
Well, one thing is very, very clear. Even though Africa is carrying the biggest burdens of the climate crisis, Africa is on the plate. But we all suffer different impacts of climate change. And you also have the fact that most countries have different resources that they rely on. Nigeria, for instance, is heavily reliant on fossil fuels. And that's why Nigeria chose, for instance, that in transiting is going to use compressed natural gas as the transition fuel. Other countries have their own resources. There's nothing that is binding in this case. And that is why we have had little progress in terms of achieving the targets of the Paris Agreement. The agreements at the COP are not binding. You have different countries with their own nationally determined contributions. There's no cap. And I think, like mentioned earlier, there was this, the global stock take. The report which came out on September 8th was clear that despite the fact that every nation has its own ambition, we are all working towards addressing the climate impact, but there's no synergy. There's no, we are far from, the target. So it's because these policies from different countries are not non-binding. Nobody can hold you to account. So different countries are going to the COP with their own personal agenda. It, like I said, it's a marketplace now. The discussion is going to do business. And the business here is the business of climate change. Activists will tell you that the solution to the climate crisis is just to cut emission at source. It's massive investment in renewable energy. It is ensuring that there's synergy across different sectors in terms of addressing the climate crisis. Nigeria's national determined contributions are very, very ambitious. Some of the plans include, for instance, mass transit so that people can keep their cars and take the mass transit to convey a lot of people without burning so much of carbon. And then with the compressed natural gas initiative of the current administration, of course, that is on course. How we are going to ensure that the policy, continues to improve, that's what we have to be looking at. There's also the talk about climate smart agriculture, which uses less, fertilizers, which uses less water, so that our farming, our agriculture is resilient. So these are all some of the initiatives on the ground. But then, like I mentioned earlier, each country is going to the COP with their own personal agenda, because most of the contributions, most of the decisions are not binding. So it's left to every nation to do their own bidding at the COP.
Okay, so let's look at the fact that you mentioned something about massive investment in renewable energy, but we hear this talk every time at different COP. We heard it at COP27, now COP28. Do you think governments are being sincere about moving from fossil fuel into renewable energy?
Well, I think we have to break it down to the global south, where we are, which carries the biggest burdens of climate change, and then the global north, which is actually responsible for the industrialization model, which has brought this crisis on the world. I think we have to start from the global north, their sincerity. We have seen with the Russia-Ukraine war, how Europe, which was talking about just energy transition, when immediately Russia cut off gas to Europe, we started seeing massive push for oil and gas projects in Africa. We started hearing about the Trans-Saharan pipeline. We started hearing about the East African crude oil pipeline, which is causing a lot of crisis in Uganda and surrounding countries. Now that shows hypocrisy on the part of the global north. Now on our own part, we are stuck in a sense because we have refused to develop our economies, and most of us are mono economies. Nigeria is a good example or a bad example. We have been stuck on fossil fuel, oil and gas extraction. Now, for us to transit will take a lot. You have to build new infrastructure. You have to put in new investments. You have to address issues like we have been mentioning before now, that will take us away from, our dependence on oil and gas to our abundant sunshine, abundant directional winds up north. And this will take a lot of investments. It will also take a lot of political will, because government is making a lot of revenue from oil and gas. For you to say, wake up one morning and say, just move away from these things, it's going to take a lot in terms of, the political will and structures we have on ground to make that happen. The political will, we have seen a lot happen already. The Climate Change Commission, there's the Climate Change Act, we have our own NDCs. Yes, these things are on ground, but we've not seen much of the needle move. So what we must continue to advocate for is seriousness on the part of our government to actually follow through some of the commitments that we have made. I think that's the issue. So the hypocrisy is not only on the part of the global north, we also have the hypocrisy on our own side. So, but if there are binding agreements, it will make countries, really put in place real concrete policies which can be measured. But since most of the agreements are non-binding, we have continued to dance around the circle, and this started in 1992. This is 2023, and the Global Stocktake report that came out on September 8 was clear that the world is off track, and with the impacts of climate change are escalating. So we are seeing more of forest fires, the heat in the Western world. We are seeing more of heavy rains that are causing serious flooding in this part of the world. We are seeing coastal erosion. A lot of communities on the coast are disappearing. Yetoru is disappearing. Lebush is disappearing. We have all these things happening at the same time. So to an extent, I think it is the disasters that will make us think twice and do something. It's been all talk all this while and not really much in terms of the need we're moving.
All right, Salau in Abuja, in all of this, how optimistic are you that the solutions proffered from the summit will be implemented, not just by Nigeria alone, but by the African continent?
See, let me first buttress the point Mr. Philip raised about what we can come up with from the COP28. The same Dubai, just last week, is saying they will use the opportunity of COP28 to launch the largest solar farm for electricity production, the largest in the world. And where did they get the money from? From exploration and exploitation of oil, the fossil fuel. Can't we learn from that too, from here? Since we started this renewable energy, how many megawatts have we been able to produce from this energy transition that we said we are looking at? We still have most of our energy being produced through hydro and nuclear power projects, gas. But at the same time, the renewable energy potential is there. The money we are saving from oil, let us start using it. And that's why one of the ministers, I think Minister of Power, I think is trying to move towards that. I met him once before his inauguration, and I was able to advise. I said, Honorable Minister, let us use this opportunity to talk to ourselves. When you go in as a minister, please try to look at the renewable energy potential, and because that area will attract a lot of funds for you to be able to rejig and increase our energy supply to the nation. And I see one of the steps he has taken, because he spoke with, I think when he went to Japan, or no, South Korea, he was able to meet the president of African Development Bank, and was able to attract about it's $250 million US investment opportunity to Nigeria for renewable energy. These are the kind of discussion I want that should happen in COP28. And immediately when he came back to Nigeria, he said he's going to remove all the teaching hospitals from national grid. That's a good one from him. So let's try to see how many aspects of our livelihood that we can remove from national grid using renewable energy. That's the best utilization of this climate fund. And the money is coming from African Development Bank Climate Fund initiative. The same thing, I just advised Lagos State government through a proposal that I sent to them that, come, Olusosun dump site, and could give you nothing less than 50 megawatts, because that site is already in the city. It's an eyesore. Convert what you have to what will fetch you money. Look for private sector to be able to adapt and rehabilitate that dump site and be producing energy. There's landfill gas there, which you are just emitting every day. And we can use that as a solar farm, as an eco park, to produce energy, to even power the street light that we are looking at, that will save for safety and security. And that will reduce the energy that they use. The same thing is happening in Abuja. When Honorable Minister Wike came in, he said Abuja is too dirty, there is no light, They know this. He need to come up with project and program that he can attract this foreign investment that will be able to, because the problem is that Abuja Disco cannot give him light to, free of charge, because FCDA is owing Abuja Disco millions of naira, and Abuja Disco, being a private sector, they will want to reap their money, so they give power to those who are paying, and that's why we have darkness in Abuja. Why would current government be using generator to be powering our street lights? Now the cost of diesel. So we need to change. We need to think ahead of all this so that we can harmonize our policy and program to be able to attract this fund. That is my own summary.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Idowu Salau. Right. Let me quickly get final thoughts from Philip Jakpo there, especially how Nigeria and the rest of Africa can tap from the opportunities that COP28 is offering. What will be your final submissions in this regard?
I think Mr. Salau has said everything. These are very, very practical things. It's not rocket science. We want to see the president come back. When he comes back, start implementing some of these things. The discussions are still early, so we don't know what's going to come out.
Indeed.
From it. But then the little, the kind of thing Mr. Salau has mentioned, those are the things. We want to see practical things. It's not enough for all this drama when the COP is approaching. 1, 2, 3 months before the COP, you see a lot of activities going on. Civil government, civil society meetings is happening. After the COP, that's where the problem is. There was a remarkable achievement when the former president came from Glasgow. I was in Glasgow also in 2021.
Right.
He signed the Climate Change Act into law, set up the National Climate Change Commission. That was progress, harmonizing all the relevant ministries. So we want to see the president come back, and then we want to see practicality of what they whatever is going to be agreed to finally.